This is where it all took place. These big ships would come in here.
No one in government talks about it. No one in the official level talks about it. It might be a secret military file. I don't know.
Still classified after all these years.
I remember that night. I remember the screaming and yelling and crying, people running. The sky was red and I could see the cinders, and I was afraid they were going to land on the roof and our house would be on fire.
They didn't clean it up, and I don't think they want to clean it up.
If you walk the shoreline there, you will find cordite.
2 loaded boats full of foresight were left to sink at the dock. And they're still there today.
We're talking about explosives, stable explosive TNT in the water. It would be just as explosive as it was years ago as it is today. I think of all the other messes that Canada has got us in. We are left with that residue. We won't let them off the hook on that obligation.
The last time I was on Perry Island, it was a hot summer day, and I was chasing drug dealers. So-called tough guys from Toronto who had infiltrated Wasauksing First Nation in Ontario, looking to profit off the trauma of wounded people.
Oh, yeah?
I was also listening to the knowledge keepers, like Joyce de Bobadon, who shared the island stories with me. Joyce told me one about Deeper Harbour over on the west shore.
The people that live across the bay here, my friend's father was smoking a cigar and he just put it out and it blew up. He ended up in the hospital with burns, and while he was convalescing, the RCMPs told him not to say a word about it.
Joyce is talking about her longtime friend, Cynthia de Bobadon. The family has lived on this cove across from Depot Harbour for generations. There was an explosion here in 1963 that nearly killed her father when he flicked his cigar butt onto the rocky shore.
He threw it, and it flashed, boom.
Boom, right in his face.
Yeah,
Eh?
yeah. So it burnt most of this part right in front.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that was right over here.
Yeah.
You were there, you saw it.
Yeah, I saw
You
it.
were 5 or 6?
Yeah.
What do you remember of the flash?
I just remember being in the water and turning around and he was screaming.
Wow.
Cynthia says there's explosives all over Depot Harbour. My mind is racing. Am I standing on them? Is it safe?
It could be right here where
Yeah,
we're standing.
it could be, yeah. Like, I have no clue what it looks like, but all I know is I've heard it looks like a twig.
Wow.
Where did all these explosives come from? From the ground, there's nothing really here to see. But when you go up above, you can see evidence that there used to be a lot going on at Depot Harbour. And stories online talk of another explosion in 1945. Joyce was just 5 years old when a massive fire filled the night sky.
I remember that night, and we were standing outside, and I was holding my mom and dad's hand. I was scared. The sky was red, and you could see the cinders, and I was afraid they were going to land on the roof and our house would be on fire. I remember the screaming and yelling and crying, people running.
At the turn of the 20th century, Depot Harbour was a busy port and rail town on the shores of Georgian Bay, about 230 kilometers north of Toronto. Ships from the west arrived at port to connect with a new railway going east. It was the shortest route to the Atlantic, with trains arriving every 20 minutes. The railway changed everything. Homes quickly went up across the 500 acres. Skating rinks, churches. There was a hotel here too.
Because there was work at Depot Harbour, a lot of people came to work on the docks, and loading and unloading the ships that came in.
Right around the same time, and just across the bay to the north, another town was also rapidly growing because of the railroad. And maybe also because of all the explosives being made there. So much dynamite was being made, the town was renamed to Nobel, in honor of the man who invented the explosive, Alfred Nobel.
I went to Nobel School as a kid. And there was a fence at the back, and we were told not to play beyond the fence. And as I got into an older kid, they actually found blasting caps and other remains.
This is the chief of Shawanaga, Adam Pavis, and he knows more about the history here.
Just around this corner was where the factory was, for around this point. The factory was there where they made munitions for the Second World War, dynamite. There was a special train that actually took boxes that would be loaded with dynamite destined for Europe for the Second World War.
Nobel may have been still busy during the war, but that wasn't the case for Depot Harbour. It had fallen on hard times. The grain elevator was slated to be torn down when it caught on fire on the evening of August 14, 1945. The winds were said to be so strong, cinders were carried several hundred yards across the harbour to large storage buildings. Inside one of the buildings was 2 million kilograms of an explosive known as cordite. You heard that right. 2 million kilos, or 4.4 million pounds. News reports of the day say watchmen refused to go near the building for fear it may explode. The flames grew to be so big, it said you could read the newspaper several kilometers away in Parry Sound. The heat from the fire was so intense it leveled buildings and bent railroad ties. Miraculously, no one was killed.
But then Depot Harbour kind of became a ghost town after that. Like there was cordite there. Eh? You could go pick the cordite. Kids are making bombs and everything. Eh?
That's wild, right?
And yeah, let's go get some cordite.
Joyce de Bobadon was the chief of Wasauksing in the early 1990s.
Up this way?
Yeah, see
Oh, right
that
there?
building?
Yeah.
Depot is a short drive from Joyce's home in Wasauksing. The road we are taking is where the railroad tracks used to be. The tracks cut directly through the reserve on the island. Joyce is one of the few remaining people around who remember the Great Fire of '45 and what happened after.
This is where it all took place. These big ships would come in here.
Where was the spot where you said you grabbed the cordite from the ground?
Right
to show
over
them?
the, right like along the road along that way.
Right over there,
Yeah.
These are the footings of the large storage buildings. They are just under the water. I asked Joyce if she thinks the cordite is still there today. After all, it's been nearly 80 years since the fire.
You'd have to dig a little bit for it now.
It wasn't so hard for it when you were a kid,
No,
though. You could
no, you could see it.
It's like a twig kind
Yeah,
of?
it's like a twig. It's about this long. You could put it in a bottle, eh?
Oh.
And put a match in it, throw it, watch it explode. we
That's
thought
what
it
you
was
guys
like
did when you were kids?
Firecrackers. We didn't know, but it was just little parts.
I looked for the cordite. I looked for any hint of what you were talking about publicly shared. I know everyone, you know it, everyone here knows it, but it seems like Canada's kept a lid on this. Cordite, the contamination, the munitions, they've kept a lid on keeping this secret almost all these years.
You know, the government doesn't really act until there's something, a catastrophe, you know.
According to Pavis, there's a lot Canada is hiding about what happened in these parts, including what's in the water at Depot Harbour.
And 2 boatloads of loaded boats full of foresight were left to sink at the dock, and that they're still there today. So 2, I think they're about 110 foot long wooden ships with tightly sealed containers full of materials to build explosives that have been sitting at the bottom of Georgian Bay for 75, 80 years. No one in government talks about it.
Yeah.
No one in the official level talks about it because, I mean, it was military supply destined for a military location, and it got damaged or lost along the way. There's all kinds of paperwork that goes with that, right? Boatload of product A didn't get to location B. Somebody made a note. But I guess somebody else lost that note because
It's not out there.
it's not. But we know they're there.
It's wild.
It might be a secret military file. I don't know. You know,
Still classified after all these years.
It could be, right? Because, I mean, it is potentially an explosive substance, and in this day and age, you don't leave that stuff laying around. Or maybe you do.
Warren Tababadan had been the chief of Wasauksing for 10 years when he met me at Depot Harbour last summer. I asked him about the boats.
Apparently there's 2 ships at the bottom of this harbor too, right here, with foresight or other munition materials.
Right. We're talking about explosives, stable explosive TNT in the water. From what we're told from our scientists is that it's very stable. So it would be just as explosive as it was years ago as it is today. So we're very cautious about who we send down there or who even goes down there, because the safety issues, the liability issues.
Joyce is his mother, and he confirmed there's cordite at Depot Harbour to this day.
There's cordite. If you walk the shoreline there, you will find cordite. And it looks like Kraft dinner. It looks like Kraft noodles.
All these years, Cynthia's family believes her father was blown up by cordite. But I have my doubts, because I now think it was something much worse. Cordite is a low explosive, meaning it doesn't blow up. Rather, it burns really hot. Whatever nearly blew up Cynthia's dad had to have been something more powerful than cordite. Locals tell stories about things washing up on the shore, like this artillery shell. Our kids finding grenades. But that's not the only thing that Canada left behind.
In the photo you showed me, there was a pool, and it looks like it was right over there.
Yeah.
That, when you said in the photo, that's where they just dumped the oil?
Yeah, at the roundhouse back there,
Yeah.
there was 12 bays where the trains would come in and they'd do their oil change and whatever, their maintenance. And it just went into a pool. And after the fire, they just covered it up.
Was there ever a song written about Depot Harbour?
Yes, there was.
Okay.
And I know the people that wrote the songs. As a matter of fact, I just happen to have a copy.
Just happened to have a copy.
Okay. Will you sing it with me?
I'd be delighted to try. Okay, all right.
Here we go.
All righty.
Are you from Depot? Yes, we're from Depot. It's the CNR that's running the show. The town's been painted. Yes, it's been painted. It's the same old color wherever you go. They did the barber shop, the skating rink, the island hotel, but they forgot the bunkhouse, and it looks like, well, it looks like Depot. It looks like Depot, and it sure is Depot too.
Depot Harbour is a place many hold near and dear to their hearts. It's part of this region's history and memories. It's not only commemorated at the local museum in Parry Sound, so is the man who founded it, John Rudolphus Booth. Booth was a lumber and rail tycoon who built the first train that went from Ottawa to Parry Sound, and he soon had his eyes set on Parry Island's natural deepwater harbor. Its rightful owners were forced to surrender the land to make way for Booth's railway. Then more land was just taken. They were known then as the Parry Island Band of Ojibways. Today, it's Wasauksing First Nation.
We didn't have a say. Our leadership was somewhat under duress to give up the just under 500 acres of the Depot Harbour lands. And of course, it was the Indian agent back then. They basically told us what they were going to do. We believe that the land is still ours. We believe that it's like a finger of our hand, that you can't just sever that. It's always going to be part of this island.
The band's opposition to Booth and his railway is well documented, if you know where to look. The truth is found deep in these files at the Library and Archives in Ottawa. Records show that the band was quickly on to Booth's intentions. That's because they found his surveyors on the island months before he officially asked Canada for the land. The band tried to stop him by passing this band council resolution that the Perry Island Band of Ojibways desire their Indian agent to present to the Dominion government our wish, and that is to prevent a railroad coming onto our island. Chief D. Tababadon, March 20th, 1895. It didn't work. Booth got everything he wanted. These letters lay out exactly how he did it. Booth also needed a bridge to get there. This isn't the original swing bridge, but it's the one that replaced it in 1912. And get this, as a condition to the surrender of land, band members were promised use of the bridge. But it'd be 50 years before they first could, and only for emergencies. It stands today as a reminder of what was taken, a people oppressed, and the damage done. When the answer is always no, you stop asking.
We never want to go back to the way things were done years ago, where we were told, intimidated, expropriated, as our elders say. They took everything. Kinnigago, they took everything. They even took our language and our children. That's how much they took.
Today, few things remain at Depot Harbour that show its past, besides these cement structures. They used to be the heart of Booth's operation. It was a 12-bay roundhouse that kept the trains moving. Old train yards are notoriously heavily contaminated with various chemicals, and Depot Harbour is no different. Joyce Tababadon told us that the train waste was dumped into a pond near the docks. And according to the late historian Dave Thomas, they just bulldozed dirt into the polluted pond after the fire, and we're standing on it right now.
Do you have any idea what we're standing on? What kind of contaminants?
I don't. I would have to look at some of the reporting. I do know that there was lots of iron ore here. There was lots of, there was a potash company, a fertilizing company here that operated out here as well.
So there's just about everything you can imagine still in the ground. And before anything can happen here, the majority of the dirt has to be removed, one truckload at a time.
We know what a truckload of soil, contaminated soil, costs to remediate. It's very expensive, just one load. So we're told that there's thousands of truckloads here. So, of course, the nation could never afford, if it was 5,000 truckloads of soil, to remediate that soil. We would never have that kind of revenue.
Nor should Wasauksing have to pay for it. Canada is on the hook for this. It's not just that it allowed the land to be taken, abused, and poisoned for profit. Canada ended up owning Depot Harbour and the railroad. Maybe that's why it's still a dangerous mess. From the first Band Council resolution I dug up at the Library and Archives, signed by Chief Dan Tababadon. The Tababadon family has a long history of protesting Depot Harbour. After all, it was Joyce's late mother, Florence Tababadon, and a longtime chief herself of 26 years, who finally stopped the train in the 1980s. And then it was Joyce that refused to take the land back without it first being cleaned up.
When I became chief, they had this document. Everything was ready. All they needed was the chief's signature, and the land was going to come back to us.
That document, though, did you sign it?
No.
You wouldn't sign it?
No, I
Refused?
wouldn't sign it.
What did they think? What did they think of you not signing it?
They were mad.
Well, I was gonna say, mad as a hornet, probably.
But that's still not the most appalling part. It's what triggered Chief Florence to stop the Canadian National Railway in the first place.
And their plan was to take soils. There's a very rich soil here on the particular property, and they were looking to create a huge pit here because of this high-grade soil that they were very interested in.
This was when CN Rail was still owned by Canada before it was sold off in the 1990s. The current CN Rail company had nothing to do with this.
And I was a elementary or high school student. We came with the chief. There was a bunch of children that came with the chief. And we walked down the railway bed where all the CNR people were digging, and the hustle and bustle, and the chief led the group of children and citizens, and we actually stopped the CNR from exploiting more of our lands.
In the end, Canada tried to haul away what good dirt was left. It's a shameful, unforgivable stain on our history. The island needs to be made whole, but Wasauksing won't take the land back until Canada remediates it.
The government's supposed to clean it up because when it's returned, it's supposed to return as pristine as could be.
As Anishinaabe people, we have been stewards of the land for thousands of years. And in my backyard and in my neighbor Wasauksing's backyard, we know there are these uncared for, unkept brownfields, dumps, quite honestly. And there's no desire to clean them up. There's no profit. There's no money to be made in cleaning this mess up.
As I think of Depot Harbour, I think of all the other messes that Canada has got us in, and that we are left with that residue. Just like Depot Harbour, we are left with the residue of their actions. And we won't let them off the hook on that obligation. We want to be whole.